Can Ray and I fix the 2023 New York Jets? Welcome to JetCast. So season is over. It's that time of year again where we're going to start talking about free agents, cuts, draft, and the offseason in general. We're going to try and fix the team for the upcoming season. It's going to be a bit of a tall task. I think the first place we should start, Ray, is offensive coordinator, considering we just parted ways, I would say, with Mike LaFleur. He was fired for what you want to, whatever you want to call it. He was fired. What are your thoughts as far as what we should be doing for offensive coordinator?
It's interesting. Paul and I broke it down last week in our video, the 5 potential candidates, and they've interviewed already, a couple of them, including Darrell Bevell, who we know the Jets are high on. They like the quarterbacks that he's worked with in the past, talking like Russell Wilson, obviously Tua, Rodgers, Favre. He's got a plethora of experience, and I think without a doubt, the Jets front office is going to value that. And now we're starting to hear rumors that Monken out of Georgia has interest in the NFL. That's somebody who Paul is all over and would be his number one choice to come into the NFL to coach the Jets offense. I like the move. The guy's a winner, so it'll be interesting to see if the Jets actually, explore that option.
I would like to see Frank Reich get an interview. Now, he's going to be looking right now for head coaching positions, but there's not a lot of open positions right now for him to interview for. So if that dries up for him, I can see him taking on an offensive coordinator position. He's had a lot of success with Carson Wentz, Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, and the list kind of goes on from there. I really think that he has the ability to coach up a young player. Talking about Zach, he's going to need a full rehab from somebody that really knows what they're doing. Besides the idea of bringing in a veteran quarterback, which we'll get into with the cuts, I think he'll be able to mesh with somebody if they do bring in a veteran. So my pick would hopefully be Frank Reich. I really do hope that they can get him in here for an interview.
Right. Now, we're always talking about the guys that we want. I'll tell you one guy I do not want. He was one of the hottest coaching candidates, maybe as of just this past offseason. He returned to Tampa Bay, and in my eyes, he miserably failed. And that is Byron Leftwich. I don't like the way he calls plays. I jotted down some of the stats over here. I went over my short earlier today. They were 25th in scoring. They scored 24 points only 2 times the entire season. 25th in yards per pass. And one thing that has killed us for forever, it feels like, they were 25th in the NFL in red zone efficiency when it comes to touchdowns at just slightly over 50%. I feel like he's got experience, but, if he's failing with Tom Brady, what the heck is he going to do if we're stuck with Zach Wilson? Now, we'll get into the other quarterback options as we go on tonight, but if the Jets are really sold on Zach Wilson, he is not the guy that I see developing him for us.
Byron Leftwich, I don't think is the answer for everything that you just said. I mean, he's got a Hall of Fame quarterback with him this season, and they barely got into the
and a ton of talent. We can't forget the talent they have over there.
Yeah, I don't think Byron Leftwich is the answer. I think it's either going to be Darrell Bevell, Monken, or hopefully Frank Reich. Next on the list is cuts. So I know we went through this with Paul in a previous video, but let's recap real quick. Who are we getting rid of? Who are we restructuring?
I keep looking at a couple of people on the offense. Corey Davis, automatic cap casualty.
Yep.
I'd be interested to see. Now, we haven't seen the full contract of Lincoln Tomlinson, but I'd be interested to see where that bonus money is. because he has a massive cap hit next year. And I know Jet fans are like, oh, get rid of him, get a new right tackle, draft another tackle. You know, that's not how the NFL works. You got to have experience somewhere. And we can't forget, the center McGovern is a free agent too. There's no guarantee he's coming back. He played okay for us this year, but is he somebody I see us giving $12 to $15 million a year? Absolutely not. So I wonder if Tomlinson would consider restructuring, and, you know, we'll probably end up looking to the draft, at least on the offensive side of the ball, to fill those needs.
Yep. Another guy that I think is cut or possibly restructured is CJ Mosley. They need to do something with his contract. I think
he's guaranteed a boatload this year.
The truth is they may have to end up biting the bullet there and getting someone a little bit younger, a little bit faster at that position. Another guy that I can see them getting rid of is Jordan Whitehead.
Dark horse.
Another guy that just didn't live up to the hype. Berrios, I can see gone. He got a contract based off of what he did last year, and he has not done anything this year to keep him on the team. As far as, you know, the offensive line goes, I understand what you're saying with Connor McGovern, but the fact is, if there isn't a option out there, they may end up having to pay him. Ideally, we would hope that Becton comes back, Mekhi Becton, and we would hope that Max Mitchell at right tackle is able to come back healthy, and the offensive line can gel with Becton, Tomlinson, McGovern, AVT, and hopefully Max Mitchell on the right side. So let's hope that that's what we're going into with week one.
Yeah, well, if you look at the photos of Mekhi Becton, the videos out there, he's not losing his shape during his rehab, so that's something very positive to see, especially since he's been dealing with the leg injuries. You know, that could be a deal breaker when you're that big. And I think that Joe Douglas is very confident in his drafting abilities. And I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't really make a ton of moves on the offensive line. And, you know, that gets into another point that we're going to be talking about is we can all say we want McGovern back, but it also depends on who's playing quarterback next year.
Yep. As far as the quarterback goes, I think the only real option is going to end up being Derek Carr, if they can get him. He has no trade clause. The Raiders will try to probably move him. From his perspective, why would he want to help out the Raiders and stay on his current contract?
And hurt his potential team he's going to by taking assets away.
Exactly, taking assets away from the team that he's going to. He is going to want to hit free agency, which he will do. There's no doubt in my mind that he is going to get cut right after the Super Bowl. Raiders will move on from him, and he'll be able to negotiate with teams like Carolina, like Tampa Bay, and us.
Indianapolis, maybe.
Yep. We'll be able to hopefully sign a veteran quarterback who has put up fantastic numbers over the last few years. Better than any, if you put his, numbers up against any quarterback in Jets history, and he's the top quarterback easily. And it wouldn't cost the Jets any assets other than cap room. What are your thoughts on Derek Carr, and what do you think about Lamar Jackson? I'll let you go first with Lamar Jackson, then I'll give you my 2 cents.
Well, quickly on Carr. If he's cut 3 days after the year, he's not obligated to wait to free agency to negotiate with teams. There's a really good chance that he is signed before free agency. So we might get our answer with that quicker than we think. 3 days after the NFL season, they're most likely going to cut him. I don't see them bringing him back on that. This is their out. If they don't cut him,
they owe him a ton of money if they don't cut him.
If they don't cut him, they have like a little $5.5 million or something like that pay cut of casualty dead cap hit. I got to double check that, but it's something very small like that considering what he'd be getting paid. So if he gets cut, we can really see him signing very quickly. Now, I want to move over to the Lamar Jackson. I would have told you 2 weeks ago, you're out of your mind. There's no way that the Ravens don't franchise tag him. But now you're starting to see some of those cryptic tweets come out. You're starting to hear people in his family bark and leak things to the media where, he's putting tweets out there and Instagram stories of, if you love something, you harnessed it, you love it, you don't let it go, yada yada, all that stuff. And that's a dilemma that the Ravens are going to have to face. They have a ton of money committed on defense. They just signed the top safety in the league last year and gave him a ton of guaranteed money. I think for the right price, he might be able to be had. Now, the right price may be 3 first-round picks, but the Jets have assets. They have all their picks this year, plus an additional pick from the Blake Cashman trade. They have all their picks the following year. They have young talent. I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Douglas called the Ravens, knowing that he has relationships with that organization already from his past, and maybe instead of 3 first-round picks, I know Jet fans might kill me for this, but maybe Quentin Williams sweetens the pot. Another guy that's looking to get a boatload of money. The Jets are already up against it with the cap. A lot of Jet fans forget that we borrowed a lot of money from next year for the 2022 season. And if Quentin Williams is looking to get paid, it might be very difficult to commit a $40 million guaranteed contract for next year to Lamar Jackson and also extend Quentin Williams. So that's something just to watch out for. It might not just be a pick swap if something like that were to go down. Now, my chances of it happening, 5%. I really don't see it happening. The Ravens have built that organization around him. They built the offense around him. They built the run game around him. They built their scheme with Greg Roman around him. They'd have to completely remodel their entire offensive scheme. And they're also left without a quarterback then. They're not going to want Zach Wilson. Nobody wants Zach Wilson.
Yep.
So would they pivot to a Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo? I don't see it happening. Lamar Jackson doesn't come around that often, and the guy's in his mid-20s. We're not talking about an aging 30-year-old quarterback. So that's my take for you.
Lamar Jackson's not going to be a Jet. It's plain and simple. Even if you were able to get the trade done with first-round picks, Quentin Williams, whatever player, there is no way that you can fit him. I think you can fit his salary, the contract that he's going to want on this team, and still be able to pay guys like AVT, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson down the line. It's just not going to happen. You would really have to cut Sauce. I forget about Sauce Gardner. You're going to have to really dismantle big portions of the team to make him fit under the cap, and it's not going to happen. I don't see it happening. I think Derek Carr is going to end up being the only answer. And if they can't get him, then who knows? Maybe they are.
Garoppolo?
Yeah,
another guy who can never stay healthy, like Lamar.
Yeah, he can never stay healthy. And behind our offensive line, he'll be dead by week 2.
You think there's a potential that they draft a quarterback in the first round?
I don't know. It depends on who falls to us, if anybody falls to us.
Let's just think of one thing.
Yeah.
Woody Johnson came out in his press conference and pretty much said we're a quarterback away from contending.
Yeah.
With this elite defense. So when I hear something like that, I think there's no way in hell we're drafting a quarterback. 2, Mike White is not the answer. Because if he was the answer, Woody Johnson would have indicated it, which he did not.
Yep.
And 3, that has to make me think like something is in the works. Maybe it's not a Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, and it's not a quarterback that we're necessarily naming
If you
today.
say Gardner Minshew, I'm going to reach through the screen right now.
I'm not going to say Gardner Minshew. Okay. And for all the Jet fans that think that they're getting Aaron Rodgers, do me a favor, go look at the dead cap hit.
Yeah.
I think it's the largest in NFL history it would be, so that's not happening. But we've seen it in other sports. We saw it a couple of years ago with Deshaun Watson. Players get disgruntled. And it doesn't take much to get moved. And for a first time in a long time, we are an attractive destination. How many teams, especially for Derek Carr, can you go to right now as a free agent? Why would you want to go to the Colts? Why would you want to go to Atlanta? Why would you want to go, any of those bottom echelon teams? You have a potential offensive rookie of the year candidate at wide receiver. You have 2 established tight ends. You have a potential all-pro running back in Breece Hall.
Not potential. He is an all-pro running back. You got to stay healthy. We got to make sure he's healthy. But
And
but
if you
there's
look at this
nothing I can
offensive,
see that's going to stop him.
if you look at this offensive line, if they're healthy, we have players that can play. You
Yeah.
know, and then you look on the other side of the ball. When has Derek Carr ever had a defense that would be considered potentially top 5 in the league? We keep forgetting that. Okay, well, the Jets defense gave it up a little bit towards the end of the season. Well, have your offense go 3 and out every other play. We seen I think it was 6 drives in a row at one point. Zach Wilson towards the end of the year before they gave him the boot when 3 and out. As a defense, it's got to be demoralizing knowing that you have 0 shot at winning unless you get a pick 6 or a fumble recovery. I mean, look at what happened with the Jacksonville game. I was there. I was freezing my rear end off. It was snowy. It was icy. Quentin Williams right away comes up with a strip sack. The Jets recover it. And they, instead of marching towards the end zone, they start going backwards with penalties and settle for a field goal, and it's the only points we scored the entire game. I can't think of anything more demoralizing.
Not only is it well, I know we're getting into a little off topic here, but not only is it demoralizing, but when a defense is sitting on the sideline talking to each other, trying to make adjustments, and they have no time to because they're right back onto the field, that just doesn't help anybody. But I digress. We
could go on forever.
I know we could go on forever with this, but what were we even talking about? Quarterback?
I want to get into the draft now a little bit.
All right, let's get into
a little bit because some of these writers are going off the wall, and I feel like they don't even watch the Jets.
I know we're drafting a safety, right?
Yeah. So the Atlantic.
Sure.
No, sorry, not the Atlantic. The Athletic and Draft Network both have us drafting right now.
So real quick before you get started, this is all contingent on we don't get Lamar and ship off that number 1 pick.
Right.
So this would be a scenario where the only way we're going to still have this pick is if Lamar is not on this team.
Or another quarterback who we're not talking about, who I know Jet fans are going to kill me, but I would do it. That is Justin Fields. I'd offer the 13th pick for him. If we've heard the rumblings, I've seen it in the media. I'm not saying it's happening. Another 5% chance, but one of these are going to come true eventually. And supposedly, they're obsessed with Bryce Young. So if that comes to fruition, there's no shot they're not trading.
I don't
Fields.
I don't think Justin Fields is worth a number 1.
I'd pick him up at JFK. What we have, I just look at the stats, the progression. That's all I'm looking for. But anyways, we're in the draft here. So,
all right.
So everybody has us taking a talented safety at Alabama. He is a talented safety, but I don't see Joe Douglas drafting a safety top 15.
Nope.
Now let's look further into it. Jet fans are screaming offensive tackle, offensive tackle, offensive tackle, and worse, whatever. You could draft one of the really good offensive guards and maybe move them to tackle like ABT last year. Now, this is where Draft Network right now has the top 4 offensive linemen going. They have Arizona taking Broderick Jones, the tackle out of Georgia at 3, who, in all indications, the guy's going to, be a stud. Then they have the Colts at 4 taking Peter Skorinsky, I apologize if I'm botching that, out of Northwestern, an offensive tackle. Then they have Chicago at 7, taking Paris Johnson Jr., the tackle out of Ohio, who I love. That's who in a great draft scenario, that's who I would want the Jets to take. And then at 11, they have Tennessee taking Andrew Voorhees.
So they got 4 tackles going. They have 4 tackles going.
He's a guard. He's a guard at USC. Okay. So the top 4 offensive linemen are off the board in the top 11 picks. So maybe that's why they have the Jets taking a safety. Because as we all know, Joe Douglas is not going to reach. But I wouldn't be surprised if he moves up a few slots to get the guy either. We saw him do that in the past with Elijah Vera-Tucker. And we've also seen him move down in his first draft when he took Denzel Mims. So he's not scared to move along the board.
I think these GMs all think they're smarter than everybody else. And one of those guys are going to fall to us. Someone's going to slide. They always do. Just because these GMs just think they know better and think they can find diamonds in the rough. And I think we'll have a pick of somebody, hopefully at the 13th. And if not, and Joe Douglas does get wind that someone that he wants is going to go in front of him, he's like you said, he's not afraid to package something up, because there are less hole. The last 2 drafts have filled more holes on this team than I've seen in a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
So we are at the point now where we're not drafting to fill the roster. We're now drafting for those blue chip game changers. You know, we got we got arguably 4 game changers last draft. So now it's time to get those special players. You know, those players that are going to stay healthy and be on this team for a long time. And I really, really hope we get an offensive lineman out of our first pick because we need it. Dwayne Brown is probably going to retire. Fant is gone. And
potentially McGovern.
We still have Herbig. I don't want to see Feeney on this team anymore. We need depth at the offensive line position and not just guys we're picking up off the scrap heap like we did this year. There were 9 different combinations at offensive line. 9 times.
Well, I want to really quickly, I got to go into my film study, which I absolutely will. I will be in the lab studying, making my own mock drafts, everything just like all the other Jet fans. Usually I'm doing it Halloween night, so this is the first year in a while that's not my chore. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets find a pass rusher in the first round again. We got to look at it from not just
right. We didn't even talk about that. Carl Lawson's going to be gone.
And if the Jets somehow pull off the Derek Carr sweepstakes, they might need some of that money from JFM. You know, a lot of Jet fans are upset with him. He played solid, but I could see that contract getting reworked. And we all know how much Saleh loves those pass rushers. So if he feels there's somebody there at 13, or maybe they move up a little bit to get another edge rusher, I would not put that past them.
Final thoughts, Ray.
Go get Lamar Jackson and make my 5% prediction come true.
Frank Reich and Derek Carr are the answer.
Okay.
All right, so that's it for us tonight. If you're new here, please subscribe. If you've been here before, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you after the Super Bowl.
Go Jets.